Lotus Pod.
Welcome to another, or the very first, spooky episode of Lost and Found and Rewound. I'm Chris Lost.
I'm Found Jim.
And I'm Rick Rewound. We had one episode where we mentioned Halloween while we were recording the episode. So is that the episode that's coming up next?
It's the next one, yeah.
So we're a year.
Yeah.
We're a year ahead of ourselves.
We are 10 days away from a year from that episode.
Wow.
We're turning the corner.
Well, we've been turning the corner, haven't we?
I feel like we've been turning, you turn a corner enough times and you start right back where you were.
It's more like a circle.
That's
We've
right.
just been going around this, turning the circle.
That's exactly what this is.
A circle which is a very smooth corner.
It's a corner that never ends.
Yeah.
It's the eternal corner.
Smooth, endless corner. Yeah.
Isn't that what life is? Just the endless corner?
Depending on what you believe. No, it's not.
I was thinking, should we call our holiday show the Horror Harvest or the Harvest of Horror? What would you guys call it?
Just the horror.
Well, you got to work harvest in there because, when we grew up, there was harvest days, right?
Mm-hmm. I remember I saw Motorhead at around this time of year. They called the show Halloween Horror 86. That was one of the best shows I ever saw at the Aragon.
What year was that?
I'm not telling.
92.
No. Halloween Horror 86. Rick.
Oh, I thought you 86 someone, right? You kill them?
Oh, good year. Good year for a horror show.
Yeah.
86.
It's
sure
the only show that sounded good. It's the only show I've been to at the Aragon that sounded good. It's like they overpowered the space.
Yeah, that was the thing about that Sonic Youth Public Enemy show was that the first 30 seconds of Public Enemy was the best thing I ever heard. And then somebody told the sound guy to stop. And it dropped by about 20 or 30 dB. And then all of a sudden
turned into an echo.
Yeah, the same
echo fest.
Crappy sound that's always in that place. But that is the key, is that you have to be blisteringly loud in order to overwhelm the building itself.
Yeah.
But
the
PA company would not allow whoever was mixing Public Enemy to continue what they were doing.
That's terrible. That's a crime. It's a hate crime, what went on.
Well, there was a riot afterwards. There was a police riot. The police beat on a bunch of people after the show. Not the Motorhead. The Motorhead show, I'm sure the police beat on people after the Motorhead show, but no one knew about it.
Well, that's what makes it sort of a post-punk show, right? Didn't all those Black Flag shows always end up with the cops showing up and beating the shit out of everybody?
And was the Motorhead show, did you lose your shoe, Jim?
No, that was Sonic Youth at the Cabaret Metro. Probably that same year, actually. It's probably 1986.
So was Public Enemy opening for Sonic Youth, or was Sonic Youth opening for Public Enemy?
Sonic Youth was it was kind of like a double headliner, but I think they were opening.
And then were you guys ever on one of those bills? I feel like I saw you guys play with Public Enemy.
We did.
Yeah, you were. Yeah, in
At
Lawrence.
KU, right?
Yeah.
Was Sonic Youth there?
No. That was the rationale, is that Sonic Youth played with Public Enemy, so we could go to the middle of, was it Kansas?
Mm-hmm.
And play to a bunch of white kids opening for Public Enemy, but apparently systemic racism is not something that white kids have a problem with, but they have a problem with a white punk rock band opening for Public Enemy. They were really upset. Public Enemy were great. They were fine with us playing with them. But the white kids did not like the races to mix on stage.
I don't remember that being. I don't remember that show at all. I just remember a thin room, like a thin sort of tunnel-like room. It almost felt like a cafeteria or something that you were playing in. I don't even remember what room it was.
Flavor Flav was late because he couldn't find his clock.
Is that a joke?
That's what he
Or is
said.
that true?
He said, "Sorry, I'm late. I couldn't find my clock." I think that's
Well,
probably what he said at every show he showed up late to.
In his defense, how are you supposed to spell time? How are you supposed to spell time without your clock? That's what I'm saying there. I don't remember people booing at the show or anything. Were people booing or something? Did they throw stuff at you? What'd they do?
Yeah, they were not happy. There were people holding up their tickets. Tickets said Public Enemy with special guest, and they were covering over special guest and holding them up. That was at least the front row. It was very weird.
I did want to take a few minutes, or a minute or so, just to apologize. This is a segment we like to call "I Apologize," and if I had some Husker Du, I'd sort of crank that in for 15 seconds here. But I've been listening to some of the episodes, and I realize I've made some missteps, and I want to, in the interest of that. So first, I want to apologize to my vocal instructor. In no way were my vocal lessons dehumanizing. Just want to state that that's not true.
So you got a lawsuit coming up or something, or a threat of a lawsuit?
Yeah, I'm trying to
okay.
avoid the lawsuit. No, she's a very nice person. I just have a very low self-esteem, and so criticism. I don't take constructive or deconstructive criticism very well.
And you have to do both to get someone to sing, right? Well,
I'm not going to get myself back in trouble now by saying something like that. But boy, it did feel like that. I want to apologize to a man by the name of Warren Beatty. My inability to find you attractive has to do with my own self-image issues. I'm sure someone in the world thinks you are comely. Just want to put that out there. And then one more. I want to apologize to people with curly hair and too much body hair in general. Again, it's a self-image issue with me. I should be proud of all of us. I'm sorry if I can't be furry proud. If you're out there and you've got a lot of body hair,
and
God bless you.
When is the apology coming where you tell us that you realize now that Parallax View is a good movie?
I'm not going to do that because it's not. It's got that great sociopath segment in it. But other than that, it's kind of not so great. I wanted to announce our blues charity total. I figured we might as well cut that off and make that donation. So we figured we've seen Blues Brothers collectively, including your mom and my son, about 30 times. And then we had 49 downloads of the episode to date.
Wow.
So that's about 79. And that's a lot for because the main episodes sort of get more downloads than the side episodes. So I'm going to round that up to, I'm going to say 49 plus 30 equals 100, and we're going to donate. I'm going to donate on behalf of our podcast $1,000 to I think it was the Heart Fund, to help blues musicians, primarily of Black or African American descent. And so we're going to. It's a small amount, but it's our money. We're not using crowdfunding or anything like that to do it. So happy to do it.
Thank you for doing that, Chris.
Yeah. Oh, sure. Yeah. A Bond movie will be out soon. Gentlemen, you like British films. I thought I would ask, what is the best James Bond theme song?
Oh, like
Jim,
the opening number.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Best. Jim, you go first.
Jeez, I don't
Have
know.
you seen the James Bond films?
Yes, several. I would have to just go with a classic. I don't know, early ones. I don't know, like Thunderball or the obvious ones. I'm trying to think of something more interesting though. I don't know. It's been a long time since I've seen a lot of those. But Thunderball always comes to mind.
Oh, what's his name?
Yeah,
Yeah,
the Welsh
that
guy.
The Welsh guy.
Tom Jones? Did
Tom
he do
Jones.
Thunderball?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Good choice.
And I just always sing Goldfinger as Shirley Bassey when I see a James Bond thing, so it's got to be that.
Incredible.
Does she also do Diamonds Are Forever? Because I sing that sometimes too. Is it Shirley Bassey? Did she come back for Diamonds Are Forever? Someone will have to check that for me.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know who sang that song. That's a good one. I was waffling between.
Wait.
Oh, go
So
ahead.
no, you got also. There's also another, which is "A View to Kill" by Duran Duran.
Yeah. Classic.
That is a great song.
Oh wait, no, I absolutely hate that one. Sorry, I forgot.
Where do you stand on Duran Duran in general?
You don't want me to start, man. So if you've ever heard the band Japan, then you know that Duran Duran is simply a copy of a much more interesting and complex band from a few years before. David Sylvain and what was his name? The bass player, Nick Carn. I think the drummer. Oh, I'm trying to remember. Like David Sylvain played with Robert Fripp, did stuff like that. The drummer was really much more swingy than one of the Taylors, whichever Taylor played the drums in Duran Duran. But yeah, definitely check out Japan. They're kind of the template for Duran Duran. Especially Nick Rhodes looks like, I think, just completely copped his look from David Sylvain.
That was Duran Duran was the first live show I ever went to, Rosemont Horizon. We sat in the very back to watch them. So now I feel like I could have seen Japan at a much closer distance.
I don't know if they ever toured. I'm trying to think if they toured the U.S. and it would have been, if they did, it would have been a smaller place. They broke up in like 81 or 82. And I listened to Japan a few months ago. Again, a more in-depth listen, just to make sure I wasn't incorrect. But I'm definitely correct about that. And it's kind of common knowledge.
Well, all right, I'll listen to Japan. I was thinking Spy Who Loved Me or Live and Let Die. I think I said, you don't like Live and Let Die.
It's a great song. I don't know if it's a good James Bond song.
I thought you might say that. So here was my argument.
I thought you were going to bring Paul McCartney into the mix here.
By the
Paul
way,
McCartney.
I happen to have Paul McCartney with me right here. Continuing on my theme of enjoying Annie Hall jokes. No, it's got that the international chord of mystery in it, which is the minor major seventh, which I think is necessary for every James Bond theme song. Of course, Paul McCartney, being a music nerd, knew to put that in there. It's got the kinetic energy of the Vic Flick guitar riff in many points of the song. Vic Flick did the dun 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 dun, and so it's got that sort of racy part, dun 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 dun,
yeah.
and then it's got sort of that signature goofy Paul McCartney part that's got, so like how he does Hands Across the Water or Admiral Halsey, he's always got to throw some sort of him singing through a flugelhorn or something in it, and I think he's got that. What does it matter to you? That whole
middle eight.
segment.
He always has to have a middle eight.
Is that what that's called? A middle eight?
That's what I've heard him call it. And George Martin was really impressed because that was one of his descriptions. I feel like I've talked about this on this show, is of the Beatles songwriting progress is that they had middle eights. Like they didn't just repeat a verse and chorus. They very quickly started adding a bridge.
I don't think we have talked about it. Maybe you and I have talked about it.
I think so,
about
yeah.
Song structure.
Yes.
And I also picked it because, Jim, I thought you might pick it because Yaphet Kotto. You're a big Yaphet Kotto fan, and he's in Live and Let Die.
Oh, yeah.
Does he play on the song?
He doesn't. No, he doesn't play on the song.
Oddly enough, I, with my younger son, have watched 3 of the 4 Daniel Craig Bond movies recently. And the theme, what was it? Yeah, Jack White and Adele or something.
Well, Adele
One
does
of them.
one of them,
Or-
and Jack
and then-
White does the other.
Well, who does he sing with? No, Jack White sings with someone else, though. Does a duet, but it's not Adele.
Before Skyfall, the one that ripped off all the Batman movies, where the Joker is now got a Latin accent, and
Yeah.
they still burn down Wayne Manor, and there's still a
Oh, yeah.
Batmobile.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even think of that. It is a lot like a Batman movie.
Oh no, it is a Batman movie. It's basically that Heath Ledger Joker Batman movie. They just basically copied that onto. They just drew James Bond and all over it. It's the same movie.
I just watched it, and I have to, with Javier Bardem, right? No.
Right.
What's his name? Yeah. And then is the Joker. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, ugh. I'll have to watch it again.
Speaking of like ripping stuff off, like I just was watching old, Danger Man episodes again. That Patrick McGowan TV show. It's before he did The Prisoner, and it's like from 1960. And
Secret Agent Man was called in the U.S., right? And they did that.
Yeah, they use that was the theme, the Secret Agent Man song. But
much better than any Bond theme.
Yeah, but the original, the Danger Man theme is great. It's better, it's not, there's no singing, it's just danger, it's just dun, dun, dun. But anyway, the intro with Patrick McGowan, he's walking out of this building and it's a voiceover of him explaining who he is. And he says, "My name is Drake, John Drake," and they totally lifted that. It's James Bond. And he's driving, not always, but he has like an Aston Martin he's driving around in. And it's like, it was obvious. I think it was before if that stuff is in the books. I don't think it is, like the James Bond. Maybe it is. Maybe it's from the books. But
It probably is.
James Bond movie came after the Danger Man show. So
is that true?
I think so. Maybe not. It's like 1960. So when is the first James Bond?
62, I think.
The old one's pretty old. Is it? Oh, you said 62? That's when Dr. No?
I think so.
Yeah, that sounds right. So I think it is. Yeah, and I think Danger Man started in 1960.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to, do a deep investigation of that. I thought Daniel Craig was okay, but then, my son and I are now just, whenever he says something, we just say, it is kind of like a little Sylvester Stallone, Daniel Craig's delivery in these movies, or like Marlon Brando, I guess. But it's more like what people criticize Marlon Brando for, which I never thought. I never thought Marlon Brando was mumbly. But Daniel Craig seems really mumbly. I could be just going deaf, though, too. I can't hear. I don't like this James Bond. I can't hear him. He mumbles.
I don't know who you're criticizing. Sylvester Stallone is awesome. You got Marlon Brando is awesome. Marlon Brando is supposed to be the best actor of all time.
Well, yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Is like people would criticize Marlon Brando for being mumbly, right? That was the thing about him originally, was that he didn't enunciate like an old school, actor did. Daniel Craig actually seems like he's just kind of mush-mouthed.
Well, he's the brooding Bond, right? He's the crybaby Bond. That's what I think they call him. He's always like,
well, it does seem like he doesn't want to be there, which I've heard, right? He doesn't really enjoy making, how much $5 million of film or whatever he makes. He's not. He didn't.
Well, they gave him a healthy sum for this one,
right?
And suddenly he was really happy to be back. Like You're right. He was like totally like, I'll never do another Bond again. And then suddenly they cut him an enormous check, and he was like, I was just kidding. I mean, literally, his retraction of that statement is like so poor. He should have just been like, every man has his price. They nailed it. I wanted to ask you both. You're both brothers in a band. Do you think there's something special about being in a band with your brother?
Yes.
Coming on the heels of the loss of one of the greatest brother bands in the history of brother bands.
Someone from the Kinks died?
No, well, no. I don't know. I'm sure someone has at some point. I don't keep tabs on the Kinks. But as you both know, Van Halen
conversation's over. You don't keep tabs on the Kinks. Well, I don't even like the way you said that.
I listen to them. I'm not aware of whether or not they're still alive.
Dismissive.
They don't put that kind of stuff in the news. They don't publish things about people that nobody really care about in the news. So I wouldn't know how to follow their.
That actually made me honestly a little angry when you said that. Had like a little momentary flare.
I love the Kinks. I'm just trying to antagonize you. So I'll stop it. And apologize. I'll put that in the next I apologize segment. Kinks are amazing. My wife turned me on to Tom turned me on the Kinks way back when, but then my wife made me do an extra dose. And so there's for a couple of years, I listened to it like the Kinks and T-Rex. It was a delightful couple of years.
I would argue that they wrote better songs for longer than the Rolling Stones.
Oh yeah, I'd agree with that.
I think there's a Kinks song from 1989 that's good. Whereas the last Rolling Stones song that's good is Undercover of the Night, which I don't think a lot of people agree with me on that. But
I like that song.
Yeah, it's a great song. It's also a Sly and Robbie song that Mick and Keith just sang and played over.
What about Miss You? When did Miss You come out? I like that song.
Do you really?
Yeah, I like Miss You. It's got a cool groove. I mean, it's a disco song, but I don't have any issues with it.
Yeah, I don't like that song.
There's only like a 5 or 6 Stones records I like, and they're all like clustered together. There's like Black and Blue, Goat's Head Soup. Even Some Girls is kind of patchy.
I definitely like Some Girls better than Goat's Head Soup.
What's Fool to Cry On? That's Black and Blue. Let It Bleed. Oh, what's the French Villa one, the double album? Oh,
the one that
Exile
nobody...
on Main Street?
Yeah, no one's heard that one.
No hipster has ever heard. No hipster bar jukebox has Exile on Main Street.
I can talk about another instance that got me visibly angry. I almost kicked the television. Was Jimmy Fallon was interviewing Keith Richards, and it was for the reissue of Exile on Main Street, whenever that happened. That was like 10 years ago, right? And Jimmy Fallon asked Keith Richards what's his favorite Stones record, and Keith Richards said Between the Buttons. And then, you know what Jimmy Fallon said? He said, but Exile on Main Street's pretty good too, right? And then that was it. It was like, I've heard like 3 million interviews about frickin' Exile on Main Street. And here's a moment where Keith Richards actually talks about Between the Buttons, which I don't think I've ever heard anybody talk in depth about that record, right? And I love that record. And moron Jimmy Fallon just like sticks with it. It's like, no, we're here to promote. Like the interviewer is like keeping Keith Richards in line. No, we're here to promote Exile on Main Street, the 40th anniversary or whatever, 30th, whatever it was. And we're not going to talk about Between the Buttons. I got so mad. I still hold a grudge. Every time I see Jimmy Fallon, I think about that. Sorry. I get really emotional about this stuff.
I know you guys don't watch a lot of sports, but one of the most infuriating things in sports is they'll come up to there was actually a famous interview where a guy had just won like a big football game, and they ran up to him, and he was the reason why they won. He I forget what it was. He intercepted a football or tapped the ball away, and it ended the game. And they ran up to him with the microphone, and he was like, and they're like, "How do you feel right now?" He's like, "I feel great. Forget these guys. We beat them. I'm so he was so excited. He's like, we won, and we were the best. We're better than them, and we beat them, and we won." It was like the very rare, genuine, emotional moment in sports interview history. And then what happened is everybody in the media came down on this guy, like, "Oh my God, where is your sportsmanship?"
Right,
when it's
exactly.
So what they really wanted him to say was, "Hey, these guys played a great game today. They gave us their all. We got lucky.
It was
we
just our day.
Just there at the right time." It's like, what do you want? Do you want this I was like, no, I love that. That's great. He went for it. And then, they basically beat him down for telling the truth. It's just like this, they derailed Keith Richards talking about Between the Buttons.
Being a competitive monster. It's like, at least be honest. That you have to be a competitive monster to operate on that level professionally.
Well, we pay them millions of dollars to be gladiators.
Exactly.
and run into each other. And then we're like, hey, as soon as the second you're done doing that, like running into each other at super high speed and then being super glorified by 60,000 people screaming how great you are, I need you to calm down and I need you to say something respectful about the person that we just asked you to clobber.
You need to be humble.
Yeah. So
we're gonna take a pump and inflate your head 100 times its normal size, and then we want you to fit your head through the door.
So we won't memorialize Van Halen, but my question is...
No, it's fine. We can talk about Van Halen. Sorry, I'm derailing everything here.
Well, I did want to get to the... I don't have the experience of being... I've been in bands with friends my whole life. It's pretty much been the only thing, and I very rarely... I don't think I've ever been in a band with somebody for a professional reason. So it's always been a special friendship bond, but is there something special about playing with your brother in a band? Or is it like just having another great band member that you click with?
I think it's both, probably. I mean, I think part of it is compatibility, but I also know that they're, like the Kinks, for instance, there's not a lot of compatibility there. There's been occasional stabbings.
Or Oasis, those guys always fight.
Yeah,
or something.
Oasis. So I don't think the compatibility thing always works out. But maybe that's just
puppets.
Meat Puppets. Yeah, they
kind of
what's his name? The brother quit for a while, right? The bass player quit.
Went to jail.
Yeah, that's true too. But he quit before he went to jail, right? I feel like, but yeah. I guess you just don't hear about the brother bands where no one's trying to murder each other, or it's because money becomes involved, right? So once you're rich, even if you're family, that's a problem, right?
Which
so
we obviously never had.
We
that
had
problem.
that never had that issue.
So that was good.
Yeah.
You guys made money doing what you did.
Yeah, but not money to the point where we would try to stab each other.
Yeah, and that's what I was looking forward to. Never got that exciting.
There's still time.
It was actually pretty boring being in a band with your brother. It's fun. I don't know.
So
it's a heavy questions. This is another very special episode of Lost and Found in Real.
What I always say is that it's entirely that Jim is a wonderful person and is a very easygoing person. So it worked out very well, but through no fault of my own. Right? It's more about Jim just being a pretty level-headed person. So it's true. So that's what I always say.
Jim, did you like being in a band with Rick?
Sure.
Your older brother?
That was fine.
You're in two bands, one with your brother and your sister-in-law, and the other band you're with longtime friends. Which band do you prefer being in?
Let's see.
Sorry, let me rephrase the question. Which band do you like the band members better in?
I wish I could just combine the two bands together and we'd just be all one big band. That would be my dream.
See, now you should be an NFL football player because that's the answer that they would want you to give in the interview.
That's why Jim's a great band member. He's very diplomatic and sarcastically diplomatic. It's like if you force him into a corner, he's going to give you a scenario that's untenable and ridiculous.
We've said it before. Jim is above humans on the evolutionary scale.
I have gills. I've adapted.
One observation I made about Eddie Van Halen is I was trying to say he was the greatest rhythm guitarist of all time, but I actually think he's one of the greatest percussive guitarists of all time. And I would categorize a percussive guitarist as someone who plays a guitar like a percussive instrument and or piano. We have a friend named Matt, which names about 500 million human beings alive today.
But also half of your friends, right, are named Matt, I feel like.
Yes.
Like
and all of their wives are named Sarah.
Yeah.
But I was thought of a list of some percussive guitarists. I thought I'd run it by you guys and see what your reflections are. Whether or not, A, you agree they're a percussive guitarist, and B, if you think that they were any good.
I'm really starting to feel inadequate here because you've done a lot of preparation for this episode, and I personally was sitting upstairs working, and my wife said, "Do you want to eat dinner before your thing tonight?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I have a thing tonight." I feel really bad. I didn't prepare at all. It was, as you could tell by me eating while we were starting the episode.
Look, after my brother-in-law came on here and clearly waylaid my contributions to this podcast, I figured I'd better try and put a little bit more effort in this to make a case here.
All right, so I don't have to do any more work, though, right? Just to clarify. Yeah. Okay.
You provide plenty of educated opinions on the show. I don't have any educated opinions. And Jim has all that esoteric information just locked away in his brain. It's up to you and I to sort of pick it out of there. So that's sort of your job. Educator, lock picker.
So I'm going to put that on my business card.
Bucky Pope.
Oh.
Ooh. Percussive guitarist. Yes or no? Is he any good? Yes or no?
Oh, I love him.
Yeah. Amazing.
That was one of the best shows I think I saw was Tar Babies. I don't think I had the record yet. I might have had the record, but seeing them live, it was like impressive.
Fried milk era.
Fried milk, yeah. Definitely. Yeah.
So they came to Columbia once, and I had a horrible cold and couldn't make it to go see them. Oh. And then I took cold medicine, and about 20 minutes before they went on, my fever broke. It was their band, Mudhoney, and I can't remember what the third band was, but it was like just an incredible bill. And I missed it. I sat in my dorm room. Oh. And everybody says he was the best, like, to see live. So I thought that Eddie Van Halen might have been the best percussive guitarist, but I'm thinking that Bucky Pope might have been the best. Because people describe him as like unreal. Like you've never seen somebody play guitar that way. Is that true?
I just remember being really good. And that's why the Red Hot Chili Peppers always put me in a rage, because there were multiple bands that were better at the punk funk thing. Like, and to have the Red Hot Chili Peppers trail through my musical life for 30 years when there were so many more talented and better musicians working in that corner of punk funk. I mean, it was 35 years ago when I saw Tar Babies, but it definitely was profound. One of those, so when people talk about seeing Jimi Hendrix play or just seeing a really good guitar player play, I saw Richard Thompson play a few years ago, and that was pretty amazing too. And so, he definitely is up there with one of those people where if you're in the room and in a smaller venue, lucky enough to be in a smaller venue watching them play, it's amazing. Even though Richard Thompson, I was getting a little like, oh, he's got 10 tricks and he does them all the time, which sounds awful for me to say, considering my guitar playing pales in comparison infinitely to Richard Thompson. But it was, after a while, it's just because I was older and more analytical. But yeah.
I'd argue there's some things on Shoot Out the Lights, some guitar parts that are percussive, that feel like he's playing a piano versus a guitar. There's some real sort of rhythmic, I don't know what you'd call it.
Yeah, he's rhythmic, but I wouldn't call him percussive, Richard Thompson.
Good call.
This definition, this percussive thing is throwing me off a bit. It's just good guitar players, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let me guess. Andy Gill. Is that who you're going to say? No.
I was not. Who's Andy Gill? I know I'm going to be
trying
for asking.
Just
I'm not going to put on airs. I'm not going to pretend.
Never mind. Just go on. Ask your questions.
Who is Andy Gill?
I don't even want to talk to you about it.
All
Just
right.
go on.
She's going to kick the screen. The former drummer of Open Wound, who switched to guitar.
Oh, Jay Mascis. Okay.
Consider him.
So Eddie Van Halen was a drummer before he was a guitar player, right? Alex
Correct.
and Eddie switched, right? So are you? Yeah, you're trying to find some kind of connection. But Jay Mascis to me doesn't sound like a drummer playing guitar. But Jim, maybe you had a comment before I interrupted.
No.
You know, like and there's all that. But then a lot of that kind of stuff is all that's kind of bass too. It's really hard to distinguish which one of them is playing the percussive chords.
Right. That was so much of it was Lou playing bass chords too.
Yeah, guitar on the bass.
Dinosaur sound was
It's basically two guitar players.
Yeah.
Except one of them's playing bass.
Well, we went and saw them, and I was like, I always thought there were two guitar tracks that he sort of backtracked himself, and then when you go and it's Lou playing like all those full chords.
Yeah, it's insane.
How about Robert Smith playing the guitar like a steel drum or a marimba?
I just don't have a good feel for Robert Smith, the guitarist. I know he played guitar on almost everything, right? I mean, and people say he's really great, subtle guitar player, but I never focused on him. I never saw them live, have never seen them live, and never focused on his guitar playing as more as a songwriter. So
he's a great guitarist. He's a great rhythm guitarist too. He's, in fact, Jay Macis cites him as one of his influences.
Oh, yeah,
Joe Walsh. Oh, sorry.
Oh, Joe Walsh is a great rhythm guitar player.
Yeah, sure. I love Joe Walsh.
You've studied Joe, Jim. I hear it in a lot of your songs, actually. I remember when you bought that James Gang record, and then after that, I heard a lot of James Gang in your band. A James Gang influence.
I guess. Yeah, I like the early. Yeah, his early stuff was. Yeah, he's a great guitar player, and interesting rhythm, like you said. Definitely had an original style.
I just did a Joe Walsh deep dive a while ago, and there's an amazing song. It's on one of his early solo records, or the Barnstorm. I don't know, but it's like him. He does like some scat singing at the beginning. I sampled it. And I'm like, I've got to do this at some point. It's like him. You just got to. I'll find it. It's like him. He starts out scat singing, and then it's just him screaming. Like you can hear him in the vocal booth, and then the song starts. But it's like the most amazing moment where he's just basically shredding his vocal cords, like obviously just losing his mind in a good way, but in the vocal booth is amazing. He's responsible for Pete Townshend's guitar tone on basically every Who record from Who's Next to the last, the 80s Who records. That's another person I got mad at was Kenny Jones. I've been listening to a lot of the Faces. It's just I understand why Kenny Jones was the drummer in the Who after Keith Moon, but because they all knew each other and were from the same, scene, basically. But it's just like, that's another horrible misstep. Kenny Jones, like I'm like sitting there watching Kenny Jones play with the Faces and then trying to understand what went wrong when I'm watching like Lou live Who stuff from 1981 or 82. But I went off on a tangent. Joe Walsh bought a guitar. Wait,
that's a great tangent. I want to follow that tangent. Okay. I think the answer is because you can't have to have the Who without Keith Moon. And actually, now I think about it, I think Townsend was a percussive guitarist, and I think that the lead player, and you've said this before, Rick, this is cliche, but the lead player is the bass player. The other thing about a percussive guitarist, or maybe a rhythmic guitarist, is that there are bands where the bass player locks in with the drummer, and that's sort of a common thing. But I think that there are bands where the rhythm guitarist locks in with the drummer, and then the bass player goes off and does whatever he wants. That's why I had D. Boone on my list as well. I don't think Townsend could survive without Keith Moon. I think the two of them were one unit, and I think you unplug that half of the unit, he just couldn't do it. I
think there's some interesting stuff. The rhythm section of Big Country before they, were in Big Country on the solo Pete Townsend stuff. They're good. That
bass player, it's amazing.
Yeah, that first Pete Townsend solo record or Empty Glass. Some of the stuff on
those are great records, but they're not Who records.
No, they're not. But no. It's just Kenny Jones. Yeah, and he made sense for what Pete Townsend was trying to do. Actually, I just read a thing about not to go. We could just do a classic rock podcast. Peter Frampton getting a call from Pete Townsend, where Peter Frampton was right at his downward thing. He had done Sgt. Pepper's the movie, right? Oh, yeah. And the record after the live album tanked and all that kind of stuff, and he was. at the bottom. Then Pete Townsend called him up and said, I'm going to just be doing studio work with The Who from now on. I want you to play guitar with them live. And Peter Frampton was like, that's insane. But he was also like, but I have nothing going on. My career's over, basically. I might do it. And then Peter Frampton was like, you need to talk to the band. And then Pete was like, okay, I'll do that. And then he didn't hear from Pete Townsend for like a month, and then finally called him back, and Pete was like, oh, I'm sorry, no. It's not happening.
I was crazy when I called you. Don't worry about
exactly. And that's what Peter Frampton was saying, is like he had no idea what was going on in Pete Townsend's mind, but it was like he didn't realize that Pete Townsend had just, thrown a lifeline to Peter Frampton and then ignored him.
I think Peter Frampton could have, he's a talented guy. He probably could have replaced The Who, and then you get Billy Squier to replace Led Zeppelin. And then you've got the two greatest rock bands just still out there today, just in one-man form. Do we think D. Boon was a rhythmic percussive guitarist, or was he a lead guitarist? Kind of did both.
Yeah. Yeah, he did crazy solos. And he was I never got to see live, but Rick got to see him live, talking about amazing guitarists live, which I've heard. But
yeah, he was amazing. And that's the thing is, Mike Watt would go off. I think what we're talking about here is when you have it's a power trio setup. And so when you're a guitar player in a power trio, regardless of whether or not they have a lead singer or not, right? So that's
right. Yeah,
a little dismissive.
A power trio. Yeah, the Chili Peppers are a power trio.
It's dismissive of lead singers, but it's that idea of the guitar player having to cover both bases. So you have to be a good rhythm guitarist if you're going to play in a 3-piece rock band with vocals.
Let's move on to what we've watched. Rick, what have you watched?
I just, while we were talking about this, I was watching Erga Music War, just watching over and over again Gang of Four with one of the greatest guitar
Andy
players
Gill. Andy
ever.
Gill's in Gang of Four.
Playing.
Have you guys heard of him?
That thing where he's strumming the guitar manically, but then he only hits the string like once every measure. Yeah. And so he's like strumming at like... Going, ding, ding. And just like... ding. So in terms of percussive guitarists, I think Andy Gill is probably the most percussive, I would say. And actually what's unfair is that Wilco Johnson, who was in Dr. Feelgood, which was this kind of 1975, right before punk hit, pub rock band, but Wilco Johnson was the guitar player in that. You just need to watch a video. Go on YouTube and watch Wilco Johnson, because he left almost immediately after the band, kind of hit in England. You watch Wilco Johnson and then you realize, oh, okay, everything Paul Weller's doing in the Jam, or at least early on, is very like stabby Wilco Johnson-y. And then you realize, oh yeah, that's probably, he had a huge influence on Andy Gill too. I don't think people realize, well, some people who actually like, that era of music and like, know about Gang of Four and Andy Gill and things like that. They know about Wilco Johnson, but sorry, I'm
Why
trying.
Is that funny?
I'm trying so hard to be mean to you, and it's not working.
You're throwing daggers, and I'm just like they're just going straight through me.
You would really like that first Dr. Feelgood record and Wilco Johnson, and I think a lot of what people consider post-punk kind of guitar playing, that percussive, stabby kind of sound, can be directly traced back to Wilco Johnson. His sound is just based on the way he hit the guitar with his hand and then doing like hyper blues rock, rock and roll, amped up, minimalist pub rock. Wilco Johnson was on Game of Thrones, Chris. You watched Game of Thrones, right?
Was he really on Game of Thrones?
Yes. He kind of looks like G.E. Smith if he was really skinny and had a shaved head.
Okay, in my defense, it's not like I had listened to these bands and was telling you guys they were terrible. You should feel like you're sort of helping me along, helping educate me. You will find out today. I watched several of the things that you encouraged me to watch, and I enjoyed them. Just because I didn't have a cool older brother who turned me on to Gang of Four and the Jam. I mean, I'll do it now. I'll get to it. I promise.
You're just a proxy for my anger at the world, Chris. You're not.
I've said that before on the show.
Yeah,
I'm the audience surrogate.
You should. Everyone should know Wilco Johnson and Andy Gill. That's my world, and I'm angry that it's not everyone else's world.
The sad thing is that of our listeners, probably a majority percentage of them do. So I'm probably behind the rest of them. So I'll apologize to our listeners who actually have been growing at a nice pace. And so I want to say thank you for listening to the show, and I promise I'll do better.
And for the listeners' sake, Chris, I hope you edit down a lot of what I've been saying.
I always do.
I know.
So before we took both my kids to see Skyfall, they had never seen a Bond film. So we made them watch every Bond film in order, and they loved Dr. No. They loved all the espionage. They loved, licking the hair and putting it in the closet door to see if somebody had come into the room, or when he sits in the chair with his gun, when he makes up his bed and the guy comes in and shoots his bed, and then they loved all that little, even because there aren't a lot of gadgets in that movie, I don't think.
Right. It's like the original kind of spy stuff. Yeah.
Right.
Before they had to start making up crazy stuff to keep people interested.
Underneath the Mango Tree goes through that, and Three Blind Mice are all through that, and it's all sort of Cubano, I think the music score is, and they love that. They love old timey music. So they fell in love with those old films. Your boys may not want to watch them, but I bet you if you made them watch them, they'd enjoy them.
Force it. Mm-hmm. Because that's, every young man should watch James Bond to get an idea of how to be a man.
Right.
In the 21st century.
My daughter took exception to the rape scenes, where Bond basically had sex with a woman against her will, and then, of course, she enjoyed it.
Yeah.
My daughter didn't think that was very realistic.
Yeah, or appropriate. Yeah. No, there's something to be said for progress and, leaving older films behind sometimes. What else? Oh, Being There. Watched Being There.
Ooh,
still great. Star Trek II. Watch that. Still good.
That's a good film. Oh, is that Wrath of Khan?
Yeah, Wrath of Khan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry, Wrath of Khan. Ricardo Montalban just basically going for it. That's what I got out of it. I've watched it so many times over, 40 years right now. It's almost 40 years old. But just as an older man, realizing that that's Ricardo Montalban going for everything. Like basically saying, this is my chance again. It's like after Fantasy Island and everything like that, I'm going to show that I can outact everybody. And he does. He does a better William Shatner than William Shatner,
And then he gets those car commercials after that. And
yeah.
That's basically his career. Fantasy Island, Wrath of Khan, Corinthian Leather.
I watched the documentary about Cream magazine. It was a while ago, but I really enjoyed that.
Ooh, that sounds good.
Yeah, it's really good. I was able to watch it through my local art theater. They had online screenings, where I think, I don't know if they get any money when you buy a ticket, but it was through them. I hope they do. But yeah, just the history of Detroit rock and roll kind of, but then how that magazine was part of it. Just the short period of time and craziness, and a good rock and roll documentary it had bands in it, but it was more about journalism, Lester Bangs. And so you had the kind of Stooges, MC5 and Alice Cooper. I'd forgotten that Alice Cooper started out in Detroit and then moved to LA or something.
Right. I thought so. Stooges were Detroit. They weren't Ohio. Why do I think they're Ohio? Maybe that famous footage of them playing live is at some county fair somewhere.
It's a TV. It's like on TV. They have them on TV, like a local television station showing this festival. And it's like a straight-laced reporter, and then like Iggy, the singer, is rubbing peanut butter on himself, and it's that famous shot of him like pointing, and the audience is like passing him around, like he's standing on the audience's hands. It's that all those kind of images are from some local television station went to see the festival and caught the Stooges, who were not the headliner by any means, right? And it's like, thank God that happened, because that footage, it's in every Stooges documentary and every Detroit documentary, is because they're lucky enough that they got on local television in Ohio.
That's my exact impression of it. I'm so glad somebody decided to film this, or somebody thought this was the right thing to film, because clearly it wasn't. And I'm so glad they did it. Like it was not for whoever they were filming it for.
It's like the kids watching that night are like, why didn't they Like, why aren't they talking about Grand Funk Railroad? You know, they're like really upset. And it's like, why are they showing this band? Which is another Michigan band, right? So not to dismiss Grand Funk Railroad completely, but it's like, why is that band? Why was Grand Funk, not that they're famous now, but Grand Funk Railroad was the band from that area that became the huge hit makers, not the Stooges or the MC5. I watched that Knowing movie with Nicolas Cage that was mentioned.
I just saw it on my list. I'm like, shit, I forgot to watch Knowing and Next.
I didn't watch Next. So yeah, Knowing, that was interesting. It has got, so it's, the best part of it is the destruction stuff. So it's got all that great, you know, they're these violent, explosive or violent events that happen, like a train plowing through a train station or something, you know, just like a huge train disaster, things like that. And it's more recent enough where the digital is really great. And so that's what I enjoyed. It was just like the director got some money, you know, and used it to his full potential. And then, of course, destroyed his career because nobody saw the movie Knowing. Gemini Man. So my younger son wanted to watch. It's the
Will Smith movie?
Will Smith, Ang Lee, directed by Ang Lee. It's another Ang Lee movie that was shot at a high frame rate. When it was projected in the theaters, they were projecting it at 60 frames per second. Some places maybe even 120. And just hearing about it, I was like, why didn't I know about this? I would have gone to see this awful movie if I had known. But there were just a few moments like where like the younger kid, my younger son, was saying, wow, ooh, that shot looks really weird. I'm like, that's the high frame rate. But the action sequences look really good because they're at that high frame rate. And also you're streaming it, so you don't get necessarily the 60 frames per second. And then it was confusing to my son because it's a clone movie. You know, Will Smith is beating up the CGI version, younger version of himself. Yeah, he was confused. Like, why? How come when he like hurts him or shoots him, how come that doesn't hurt him? Because he thought it was a time travel thing. He thought
that's a great
that
point.
if he was
I would have thought that
beating
too.
up,
like if he puts a hole in his leg, then Will Smith should have a bruise there.
Have a hole in his yeah, exactly, right? A scar. And it's like, no, this isn't time travel. It's just clones. And it's like so even just the idea of fighting with your clone and everything like that is an antiquated idea. It's like the audience today wants their time travel.
Yes,
you know,
do.
They want their if they see two people, a younger version of someone fighting with themselves, they're assuming there's some kind of time paradox going on.
Hey, but it was a terrible film, Gemini Man.
Yeah, it was terrible. It was truly terrible, and so I feel bad for Ang Lee, but I'm starting to think that maybe he's not that great of a director.
Did you see Bad Hulk? Because Bad Hulk sucked.
Yeah, I saw Bad Hulk. I saw what's the other one he did?
Oh, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon was fantastic.
Well, yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
He also went to the University of Illinois. You know, he's like a.
I don't know that.
Yeah, he was in the theater department. I don't think he had a great time there, but one of those free services on the robot box that came with my internet had a lot of Alfred Hitchcock stuff. So I rewatched Rear Window, which is still okay. There's obvious creepy stuff in it, but still a great movie. And then I watched The Trouble with Harry, which is from like 1955. It's a Hitchcock film. It's Shirley MacLaine's first movie. Speaking of Warren Beatty. Shirley MacLaine is Warren Beatty's brother. Yep. No, sister. Which is it?
It's sister. It's sister.
Sister.
When you're female and you have a sibling
Yes.
that's a male, you're someone's sister.
But that's a gorgeous movie, right? The Trouble with Harry. I don't know if I think I saw that. Maybe I saw it like at the Film Center or something. I'm trying to think if I actually saw a film version of that sometime in the past 20 years or something. And
they did that was the thing in the 80s. They did those re-releases, right? That was the thing is Rear Window and Vertigo and Trouble with Harry and Rope and one other, right?
Yeah.
The remake of The Man Who Knew Too Much, right? The second Man Who Knew Too Much. They were all restored and re-released. So maybe you saw it during that, or was it even after that?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, like even on the TV, it was just like, and Beaver from Leave It to Beaver, what's his name, is like a little kid at the beginning finding the body.
Yeah.
And it is truly the most beautiful, I guess it's Technicolor film.
Yeah.
And I'm
Jerry
sure it's part of the
Mathers?
restoration. Yeah, Jerry Mathers is in The Trouble with Harry, along with Shirley MacLaine and the guy from Dynasty, John.
What's his name?
He plays an artist. That character is amazing. His character as the artist is worth it. The rest of the movie is just like, and the character actors are all great, but it's just like the movie itself is just kind of weird. The plot, it's just weird. It's not as funny as it should be, I guess.
I do remember there was a lost summer when I was in college. Jim and I were home together. I think it was just before you all were going on tour. And so Jim and I were kind of left to our own devices for that summer, and it was kind of a lost summer, but I remember watching Leave It to Beaver every day, 2 episodes a day, and just being absolutely in love with Barbara Billingsley. I'm thinking, not only did I want her to be my mother, but I also wanted her to be my lover as well. So, Barbara, wow. If you're out there, it's like come swaddle me.
Reminds me of the Demented Prince demo that I sent you. It's like some...
Oh, that Prince song was...
The fantasies, yeah.
That was incredible.
Get a little...
I got to listen to this song again. I listened to it once or twice. I need to at least listen to it 1,000 times.
I don't know if it's still up. Yeah, that was the thing, is everyone that had posted about it was like, I can't believe this is still up.
There's an Under the Cherry Moon thing happening now where people are saying Under the Cherry Moon is a good movie. I remember watching it like back when it came out and was like, this is unwatchable. And so now like people are like, you just don't, you have to put it in context. I'm like, context of what? It sucked. So
I didn't even attempt to watch it.
Whew, yeah, you can skip it. One of the best Prince records ever, but
I like that record.
Maybe the worst film.
Yeah. That's weird. Yeah, everybody's talking, especially because of the re-release of Sign of the Times, and it's like Sign of the Times is okay, but yeah, I like Under the Cherry Moon, that record better.
Parade.
Yeah, sorry.
Come on,
Songs
Rick.
from Under. Yeah, sorry.
You know anything about music? Sign of the Times. I spent a summer listening to Sign of the Times. I loved it because it was a very different. It wasn't a pop record. It was a melancholy record.
Yeah, and I love the lead track, the title track. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, my copy of Parade, does Parade, like my vinyl copy that I bought the day it came out, does that have the actual name of the record on it?
It does. You should read it. You've had it long enough.
I watched Silent Running.
I don't know what that is. Silent Running?
It's a movie with Bruce Dern. It's directed by Douglas. Oh, he's the guy who did the special effects for 2001 and did special effects on Star Wars. Trumbull, yeah. Written by Michael Cimino. Ooh. I think it's Michael Cimino's first script. Wow. It's about Bruce Dern is a environmentalist forest ranger on a spaceship that's got all of Earth's plant life. They're like these terrariums, kind of, or terrariums. What are they called? Yeah. They are kind of like these greenhouses with all of Earth's plants, and he's taking care of it. And he's with 3 other knuckleheads who are just there, like the guys in Alien, right, where they're just signed up for 5 years on the ship.
Yeah, they're
or
workers, they're miners, blue collar.
Yeah, blue collar spacemen, right?
Right.
and then they get the call that the company is not going to finance the ships anymore. They should go home and they should blow up the greenhouses. And this is a movie that I saw when I was a little kid, and it blew my mind. It was like the most amazing, mind-expanding, blowing movie I had ever seen. It has little precursors to R2-D2 people who had their robots that are kind of like boxes that walk on their like just 2 short legs, and they're people without any legs, basically people with just a trunk and arms inside these robot costumes. So they're like even more sort of strange than R2-D2, right? This was the thing, is it had a profound effect on me, and then I saw it in college and it ruined the movie for me because it's like a perfect movie for a 10-year-old, right? It like was profound when I saw it, and then I watched it in college and I was just like, I shouldn't have watched this again. I should have just kept the feeling I had when I watched it when I was a child. It's got a touching ending, and again, my younger son, I just had him come. He came in and watched the last 5 or 10 minutes of the movie, which is devastating. And that's all he needed to see. And so I think it had an effect on him. But just it's unfortunate because it is an interesting movie, but it's also maybe evidence that anything associated with Michael Cimino, its success or failure, was not based on him. it was based on other elements like the whole Deer Hunter, right? And what is it? Not Tango and Cash, Thunderbolt and Lightfoot, right? Is Michael Cimino's first movie.
I love that movie. That has a sad ending.
And then my family made me watch Spider-Man Far From Home the other day.
Yeah, great film. I quite liked it. What'd you think?
I just hate all those movies now. I hate all the Marvel movies.
You didn't have the revelation I had that the two best supervillains of all time were the co-stars of Brokeback Mountain, the Ang Lee film?
That's right. You're making the connection. Well, I knew that Jake Gyllenhaal was the bad guy. Sorry, spoiler alert, was the bad guy from almost the moment he showed up. So it was just like,
I thought it was great. I thought Heath Ledger was probably the second best villain in any superhero film. I did think it was funny that those two guys came out of that film. You know, that was sort of a 70s film. Brokeback Mountain, beautiful film. I loved it. Ang Lee, one of his best work. And then what happens to two amazing actors like that? Where do their careers go? It's like they're going to be the Joker and they're going to be Mysterio and they're going to kick the shit out of the roles. But, again, it's not. You would think they'd move on to do like The Godfather or Day Afternoon or Straw Dogs,
those movies,
or something.
Yeah, those movies aren't being made. Yeah. Jake Gyllenhaal, what was it, Nightfly? What's the movie called where he's the kind of like the updated Ouija cameraman, or like he's collecting freelance Los Angeles film video guy, and he's super creepy.
He reminded me a lot of Travis Bickle. Cannot remember the name of it. Rene Russo was in it.
Yeah, it's just weird. Nightcrawler,
yeah.
Kansas City. Food-wise, a city famous for its barbecue, but that's about to change. My name is W. Dave Keith, host of the podcast Taco the Town, and I believe that Kansas City is one of the most underrated, underappreciated, up-and-coming taco towns in the USA. On Taco the Town, we will shine a light on all the amazing tacos Kansas City has to offer. Kansas City is a great taco town filled with a variety of untapped taco stylings and flavors, and on the Taco the Town podcast, we won't stop until we've tasted every taco in the town. No taco table will go unturned. Each episode, we review a new taco joint with a special guest. We share taco memories, discuss taco topics, and put tacos to the test. We check the latest stories in taco news, and no taco is off the table on Taco the Town. If you love tacos, like I do, you're gonna love Taco the Town. Available on iTunes, Stitcher, Podbean, and Google Play. That's Taco the Town.
I saw it's a while ago now, but this documentary about this band called Halix. Did you hear about this?
The Disney band?
The Disney band.
Oh, yeah. I have that in my list.
Yeah, I saw that. That's just online somewhere. I think it was on YouTube or something. You can just watch. Yeah, this crazy band, invented band at Disneyland. It was like they played at the stage at Space Mountain just for the summer. And yeah, it's an interesting story. It's just something that nobody, unless you went to Disneyland that summer, you were like 10 years old and went there, it probably doesn't mean anything to, and so I'd never heard of this, but it was obvious like they're talking to some people who were, only a few, like some kids who they were kids when they saw them, and it was like this amazing thing because it's a weird concept. It's like they're kind of just ripping off Star Wars. It's like this weird space band, and like the poster for the rock band looks totally like the classic Star Wars painting. The 77 Star Wars poster with them standing. That painting movie poster. The Halix band poster looks just like that, and there's like a big Wookiee guy as the bass player, and there's like of
course he is. Racists.
And the synth player is like kind of a robot guy, and yeah, it was an interesting story. They just created this band, and the weird thing is they didn't how it went as far as it did. Like it was pretty popular at Disneyland. It was just they play at night outside Space Mountain. But the concept was that they wanted them to be like a real band. So after the summer, they went into a recording studio to cut an album, and they had plans to like basically release an album. Like try and promote them as a real band beyond that summer, but they didn't want to put them out on Disneyland Records because it's like a kids label. So they wanted them to be a real rock band. So they signed a deal with Warner Brothers. It's really bizarre. It's like, I kind of felt sorry for the band, this band they were this weird fake band that who knows what contract they signed with Disney. You know, they're playing this summer and it's like, yeah, I'll be in this band. They're just kind of session player, just people in LA are just like playing, got hired. Not only that, but then they get signed to Warner Brothers, and it's like this weird double record label, double contract thing. And it must, you know, I can't imagine what they would have thought, like if they thought this was really going to go anywhere, or if they were savvy enough to realize this is crazy, or, you know, it's not going to, this isn't going to happen. And it didn't, nothing happened. It just fell apart. And it's like, I think everybody at Warner Brothers got fired, you know, it's the classic thing where whoever signed them got fired. And it turned out, I think they were only interested in the singer, the woman who's the lead singer.
The singer of the song Jailbait?
That's right. That's what the song, yeah. There's that whole crazy angle of that. Yeah. Yeah.
Kids
you have to
song,
watch
Jailbait.
you obviously have to watch this documentary. But,
Another reason not to have it on Disneyland Records.
right. Yeah. It sounded like that was like no one had a problem with that at all. They had no intention of putting a record out, I don't think. They just wanted to sign her basically and try and get her career going or something. But that fell apart. And
when you all signed to Warner Brothers, when you looked at your contract, did you see Halix at the top just scratched out? Had your band name above it?
No, we didn't have a previous contract with like Six Flags or anything, so it wasn't.
You mean Marriott's Great America?
Right. You know, it's just this bizarre little story. I think most people have never heard of that, and it was just this weird little summer. This crazy band, and I'm sure lots of kids saw them. You know, it was like this weird Star Wars band, and the first time they ever saw a real rock band on stage.
Did they play guitar? What was the drums,
it was like
guitar, keyboard?
Yeah, synthesizer. And
did they play
bass.
live, or was it a backing track? Oh
no, it was a real. I think they had some footage, but they're all real musicians, good musicians, and they just I'm not sure. I think a few of the people in the band wrote some of the songs, and some, you know, they just kind of picked up songs from other places. But they were kind of like a real band that were just kind of all stuck together by Disneyland.
As real as the Monkees.
Right.
And I like the Monkees.
Yeah. Oh, I've been watching Kamen Rider. It's Kamen. It's like a Japanese kids show from 1971 that is like online on, I don't know, Shout TV or whatever, Shout Factory. They're just on the webpage. You can watch them all for free. It's crazy. I'd never heard of that. And it's this insane little action superhero kids show from the early 70s, all in Japanese with subtitles. And he's like a motorcycle rider who's turned into a cyborg. So his superhero persona is Kamen Rider. He turns into this superhero, this kind of bug-like guy. His motorcycle turns into a cooler motorcycle, and they just ride around in motorcycles and fight. Basically, every episode is exactly the same, and you know, it's every week is a different crazy monster. There's this evil corporation evil organization called Shocker that's trying to take over the world. They just create cyborgs. So every week it's like a different kind of human-animal hybrid thing that they fight, that Kamen Rider has to fight. You know?
Is it human size, or do they have to get into a giant robot and take it down?
It's always human size. It's just a guy or woman with a rubber head on, you know, some kind of crazy head. So
it's live action.
It's more...
It's
realistic.
Yeah, it's
more realistic. It's not
it's real.
Like,
it's real. There's like the Cobra Man is the best one. He's like just a guy with kind of a cobra head. Well, he's kind of human head, but with a cobra hood kind of behind his head. But his one arm is another cobra. He's got a cobra arm with another cobra coming out that he just fires at people, you know, bites people with. And that's definitely the best one. And there's like a trilobite man trilobites are these ancient creatures, which bugged me, the episode, because
so to speak.
It starts off saying the trilobites lived 18 million years ago, and it's a kid show. It's like trilobites lived 500 million years ago, and
I thought you were about to say trilobites lived 5,000 years ago.
No, it's like way before they died out, like before the dinosaurs. So the trilobite episode, I was looking forward to that, but that was a little bit of a letdown. The misinformation, trilobite misinformation, feeding kids.
That would have gone right through me too. The trial I would have been like, oh, wow, that's a long time ago.
That's the kind of thing where I'd be talking to somebody at a party and I'd say, well, trilobites, that was like, what, 18 million years ago? And then somebody would go, 500 million years ago.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure at every party somebody would know
Lightweight.
that. And then dinosaurs, 5,000.
Just look like a lightweight.
Trilobites, 15 million.
That's right.
They're kind of sadistic. Yeah, the evil, the bad guys, it's pretty extreme for a kid's show in 1971, I think. They kidnap a lot of the kids and they're always tied up. Like one time they're tied up over, like this one kid is tied up over this cauldron of like acid and his like shoe falls in and it like burns up and he's like, and it's kind of classic, mustache twirling bad guys like tying a woman to the tracks. It's like that. It's so melodramatic and kind of, it's cartoonish too. So it's not that bad. It's just so absurd.
Well, I'll watch Cobra Man. I'll watch the Cobra Man episode.
Actually, I think there's 2. He comes back. They knew they were onto a good thing, so it's like a double episode. And a lot of times, Kamen Rider will like finally defeat the enemy, the monster. This has happened in like probably at least 3 or 4 episodes where he just punches him or kicks him, and the bad guy just goes flying off and then just explodes for no logical reason. Just he kicks him so hard he just crashes into a mountain, just blows up. That's happened several times. That's entertaining. Nothing, not explained at all, but some of these monsters just, I don't know if it's Kamen Rider just kicks them so hard that they blow up or something. I don't know.
Kick a trilobite and see if it doesn't explode. Right. It will. Guaranteed.
Oh, I just saw Dawson City Frozen Time, which is a documentary.
I heard about that.
It's pretty much straight documentary, but a little unusual, but it's long. It's like 2 hours long, but it's all about this, like Dawson City in Canada, where there was the gold rush, like in the late 1890s, like lasted about a year or 2 and then just went bust. And Dawson City, all these people show up and then they all disappear. Everyone leaves after the gold rush ends. But in the early era after that, in the early era of films, silent films, Hollywood films, like Dawson City was like the end of the line for the film distributors. They never asked for the films back because it wasn't worth their time or money. All these old silent films just collected and they'd burn their nitrate film. They'd catch fire and there were several fires and they just became a nuisance and they basically were all chucked into like a landfill and disappear, like a building was built over them, and they found them in the 78 or something. They just found all these films and they started restoring them, and it's more complex. Yeah, it's like about labor relations and kind of the history of exploitation and everything in like indigenous people in Canada and stuff. There's all these kind of subtexts about it. It's complex. The heart of it is pretty much just these movies and then just text on the screen. It's a bit meandering and it's just like a huge topics to tackle, like labor and native people, and it just kind of drifts along. And basically in the early 1900s, it kind of just takes a view like of culture at the time. It's a really interesting movie. It made me think of Guy Madden, and I looked them up and they know each other. They're kind of similar, but Dawson City is definitely more of like a typical documentary. Not typical, but
they're
more
Canadians, though, right?
Yeah, they're both Canadian,
so they know each other. I mean,
yeah,
we can assume.
Yeah.
Are you able to watch the new season of Taskmaster, Jim?
Yeah, and like Richard Herring is on the new series, which I love Richard Herring. I watched all. He's got that's why I know a lot of the British comedy is from watching. I started watching probably 3 or 4 years ago now, like Richard Herring's Leicester Square Theatre podcast, which he basically just interviews British comedians. So it was like I stumbled across it because I was looking up something about somebody specific, and I was like, oh, here's an interview with him, and I had no idea who Richard Herring was. And then I started watching. He's like hundreds of interviews, and he does all these other podcasts, but he interviews all the British comedians, and so I just started watching all those, and that's really where I got a lot of my British comedy knowledge from his show.
All right, I'll go through my list real quick. So Taskmaster, I loved it. Still watching it, savoring it. It's fantastic. The 1977 film House that we mentioned with Michael. I don't know if you guys have seen that yet.
No.
I haven't watched it yet.
So good. It reminds
on my
me
list.
of taking all the technical prowess of what Lucas was doing with Star Wars and applying it in just a bizarre way, just like Michael said, just such a clashing tones that came together perfectly. Class Action Park, which Rick, I think you absolutely need to watch. Have you seen it?
Yeah, I've seen ads for it. Yeah.
It is a blast until it becomes a super bummer. And then, of course, it's an analogy for what's going on in the United States today. But I don't know. Yeah, I'd love you to see it because I have so many different feelings about it. Like there's this prevailing feeling that we all think that somebody should be taking care of us. Right? I think that's sort of this common, I think it's a thing of the people of the current day is, well, where the hell are the guardrails? I remember going down to the University of Missouri and we all went out to the cliffs and it was just this huge cliff that we're all sitting on drinking beer and I'm like, where are the guardrails? Because I could just step right off this thing and die. And they're like, yeah, idiot, don't step off that thing and die. And you'll be okay. You will live. And I was like, because I remember being a kid sitting on the street, picking at the tar in the street thinking, where does it end? Where's the concrete end? Like, does it end? Like, is there an end to it? I remember seriously thinking, like, is there a point where, like, there's no sidewalk? Of course there is, right? I just wasn't in my sphere. But then I go down to the University of Missouri and I was like, oh, you can buy a gun in a parking lot here. You can climb a cliff and nobody like says stop. There's no security guard or anything. So anyway, that Action Park, I was like, where does the line of accountability start and where does the line of accountability end? Where does personal accountability start and where does social accountability start?
Yeah, responsibility, yeah.
I try and turn those things upside down in my head. I shouldn't. I should just be like, no, people should be taking better care of us. But I don't. I'd be interested in your reflection on it, Rick.
Well, I only have a vague understanding, but it's basically an amusement park with rides that could kill people, right?
That did kill people,
and that did kill people. And so the deeper question is it the park? It's whose responsibility is it when you get on a ride?
And obviously, the answer is if you're going to run an amusement park, you need to take care of. You can't kill the people who are going to your park. But then there was also that. What I'm referring to is when we grew up in the 80s and 90s. I think that there was this sense of self-destruction, like nihilism, or I don't know what you call it, that like people were seeking. I know I was seeking it. My mother's friends or my friends' mothers told me they were surprised I was alive, that I lived past 25 because it was clearly I was running towards death as fast as I possibly could. It seemed like a lot of the people who went to this park wore that as a badge of honor until, of course, the park turned on them. It bit them too hard. Like, the scars are great, but the permanent injuries and the deaths
right,
were where you had to draw a line. Something to think about.
Yeah, and it's that idea. I mean, the story about free, some of the stories about free range children and everything like that, and just somebody, people our age talking about how everybody broke their arms, and broke their legs when they were kids. Like there was always one kid in your class who had a cast, right? And that just doesn't happen anymore, right? Kids don't get hurt like that.
Yeah, people don't whip Nerf balls at people's pinkies to break them. People who don't drink milk or are super wimps who can't catch a Nerf ball don't get their fingers broken anymore.
Don't have a BB bullet permanently embedded in their skin.
Right, yeah. I'm watching The Vow, which is a HBO documentary on the self-help group turned sex cult on the East Coast, Albany, New York, who previous guest of the show was not almost involved in, but somebody tried to recruit him to this situation. And he immediately knew it was bullshit and immediately got himself out of it and immediately disconnected himself from all those people who tried to get him into it. So again, I go back to like, what are you thinking? Are you paying attention to what's going on? I mean, I'm really struggling with accountability. Well, you saw what was going on, right? And all these people are really smart people. They're smarter than me. But I know if I walked in that situation, I'd be like, this is fucked. I'm out of here. Like, I guess one of the benefits of my upbringing as a child is I now know what horrible people are and can spot them pretty quick. People who are trying to be good people to everyone get suckered into this bullshit. But at the same time, I'm like, you're a lot smarter than me. How could you possibly be suckered by this shit?
That's that idea of different types of intelligence, right? There's
street smarts.
All sorts of street smarts or emotional intelligence. Yeah. Just because you're good at one thing. And being in academia, I mean, it's kind of a plague because I don't think it's even, just like common sense and stuff like that. It's just like people who are very good at one specific thing sometimes get delusional and think they're good at everything. and terrible things. And I know that happens everywhere, but especially in academia, it's terrifying because sometimes it's like, wow, I don't think you know how to be a person. I think you're very successful at what you do, but that doesn't mean you should be, president. Doesn't mean you should be the boss. And there are people, and I'm not talking about a specific person, but you'll see people who are like, I think I should be running things. And you're like, oh, no, you should not. And you're very good at what you do, and you're very smart, but you would kill us all. You would run us into the ground, and it's because they're smart people. They sometimes can't see their limitations. Yeah.
I watched Perry Mason, the HBO
the new
remake of it. Our previous guest, Michael McLost, is in it for a couple episodes. And I watched it, I think for that reason, because I try and watch most of the stuff he's in, and it actually is really good. I was enjoyed it quite a bit.
I like the actor. He was in The Americans.
Yeah, this is just as good, and he's really good in it.
He does good American accents too.
He does.
It's always creepy to hear him talking as an Englishman or a Scot. What is he? Irish? I can't remember what he is, but it's pretty different.
I've only seen him be an American, so I'm assuming he's American.
Yeah, I know. He does really well. But I've heard interviews, and he's like, well, it was easy to do The Americans because he was playing a Russian who's learning, who's pretending to be an American. So anytime that he would slip, he could use that as an excuse. But I never felt like he slipped.
But he was playing, so basically he would slip. Anytime he'd slip into a Russian accent. So that's how artful of an artist he is.
Right, exactly.
Speaking of English accents, I watched Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. It was okay. Have you guys seen it?
Which one? The movie with...
Oh, is that a remake?
The movie? Well, there was a TV series.
Yeah, there's a TV show.
Oh, I watched
it's much
the
better.
movie.
You should watch the Alec Guinness.
Yeah.
It's from it was on British television like late 70s. It was on American like PBS in the late 70s.
Come on, Chris.
I knew I fucked up there.
It's really great. It's like 6 hours long, 6 episodes, so it's way more detail. I like the movie too. The remake I seem to remember being pretty good. The 70s show Alec Guinness one is like way more realistic, I think, or what I believe espionage, the world to be. It's like really dull and bureaucratic. The newer movie was kind of like that, but it was still a little.
It wasn't exciting,
right? But it was still like the office building where the agency's building was too nice, and that's the thing. Like in the 70s, the TV show, it's like just totally just dingy little bureaucrat office. The main headquarters is like these little offices, and it just is way grittier and kind of more bleak.
Speaking of Alec Guinness, my next thing on the list was The Lady Killers. I loved it. I thought it was absolutely great, except that old women shouldn't have parrots. My wife has these parrots, and I realized, I was like, how long is this parrot going to live? And she's like, 30 years. I'm like, wait a minute, this fucking parrot is going to outlive me? Because I bury all the animals at our house. I'm like, this parrot's going to bury me. I don't like that. I don't like the idea of timing out on a pet. And that old lady, those parrots, they're going to be there for a while. She is not.
That reminds me, because Adam Buxton, the Sleeper mods were on Adam Buxton's podcast, and they were just talking and passing about old ladies with birds. Like, it was just some weird, like, it's like a total English thing where they're like, yeah, those old ladies, and everybody would have this bird, and it reminds me of that. It's like, yeah, it's like an English thing, having the...
Maybe that's why they call them birds. I don't know, but we've got upwards of 30 birds here. It's happening here, guys.
Yeah.
It's not, it's starting to creep me out a little bit. Like
that may make me not want to visit. I don't like birds.
You don't like birds? Well, the parrots fly around the room. They sit on my toothbrush. It's bad.
That's just like a nightmare.
So you have an aviary, an official
it's called a bedroom. It's called a master bedroom.
Oh my God. Oh, I could not handle that. That would give me a heart attack.
We have cats too, and one of the cats killed one of the parrots. So I was like, this, you fucking playing with fire here, hon. You got cats, you got dogs, you got parrots, but the chickens and the ducks, they can handle themselves. Nobody goes near them.
I just had our family has rats now, or 3 members of our family have rats, and I'm just held hostage in the house with rats. Someone had the rat on their shoulder and then leaned in to talk to me, and the rat crawled off of their shoulder onto the back of my head, and I nearly died. It's just such a creepy feeling having an animal, and then birds just flying randomly around. Oh, awful! Yeah. Scares me.
It's pretty wild.
That's why I have a house.
Right, just to keep those animals out. You said that your family of rats, like you're saying, my family has lice. My family has lice now.
What's funny is they're in my older son's room, and they're in a cage.
They're in your older son's cage.
No, it's cage. That's actually a story of a friend of ours. Like when he was a kid, he was so out of control when he was a little kid that they turned his crib over to keep him in the crib some part of the day. And then the mailman one day, he was talking to the mailman, and he said, "Do you want to see my cage?" They would jokingly call it his cage, but he would just destroy the house, if he was just totally. But yeah, the rats actually did a great escape the other night. My older son woke up, and there were 3 rats asleep on him, and he had left the cage open, but then he's got these kind of walls up so they can wander around in a corner of the room, and they had finally figured out how to chew through the wall and got out, and he woke up with 3 rats sitting on him in the middle of the night.
The Boys, which is like a super anti-superhero TV show.
People keep telling me that's good.
It's really good, yeah. And the books, I didn't realize were written by the guy who wrote the Preacher series, which I love the Preacher series. It kind of scratched all my anti-religious itches that I had as a young teenage boy, and so I got the books too, The Boys, and would read them because this show was great. Gandhi, you guys ever seen the film Gandhi?
Yeah.
So I had to have a colonoscopy, and so I decided to pair a good film to pair with a colonoscopy is Gandhi. Well, he had to fast for 21 days, and I fasted for 42 hours, so twice as much as him, sort of. It wasn't that bad for me. I loved it. I loved Gandhi. John Ratzenberger was in Gandhi.
Wow.
He played the guy that drove Candace Bergen around.
Candace Bergen was in Gandhi. See, now I'm going to have to watch it again. I know I watched it, but that was so long ago. What year was that?
82.
Wow.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
And then I watched Thursday Night Football, where I wouldn't normally mention it, but it was the Jets versus the Broncos. And Troy Aikman at one point says, he referenced the end of Heaven Can Wait. He's like, is this crazy or what? This is just like the end of Heaven Can Wait. He's like, Mr. Pendleton. I was like, Troy Aikman, I don't even know what the fuck you're talking about. Do you think anybody watching Monday Night Football gets what you're saying? So, Rick, you've recently seen Heaven Can Wait. What did Troy Aikman mean?
Warren Beatty, the dead football player, his spirit goes into the body of another football player who appeared to have died on the field. And then all of a sudden he jumps up and wins the game. Did something like that happen?
Yeah. A guy went down and then he got up and was like awesome. It was a weird...
Yeah.
Maybe he actually thought, he's getting a little senile, and actually thought that Warren Beatty had actually taken over this player's body. And
this is a pretty good looking player, so I don't think he would have made that mistake. And then I was like, I wish Rick had just seen that, so that you're like, oh, maybe I was wrong about sports. Like, is that what they do all the time? They're talking about all these old 70s films? Happy, Happy, Joy, Joy, the documentary about Ren and Stimpy.
Wow.
I've heard that there are problematic things. Is it an official? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because
it's like Class Action Park, where like 75% of the thing is just an absolute blast, and then the last 25% is just a total bummer. House of the Devil, which was interesting, it was basically a modern day horror film made to look like it was a 70s horror film. You know how like when you watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it's made so cheaply with that old grainy film that it kind of looks like a snuff film. So you're like, just the look of it makes you feel uncomfortable. You're like, I shouldn't be watching this because these are real people and this is really happening. I think they try to recreate that with House of the Devil, but when you do it digitally, you can just see the difference.
And I'm curious, how many snuff films have you seen?
Well, I saw Faces of Death, so I don't know if that was real or not, but that's as close as I've come to watching a snuff film. What's our next movie, Rick?
The next film is The President's Analyst from 1967, James Coburn film.
If you were offered the role today for a current president to be his analyst, would you take it, Rick?
Oh, I'd love, yeah, but I think the current president, depending on when this comes out,
It's not going to change.
it's probably impervious to therapy.
Do you think he has an analyst? There's no way.
If he does, if he does, that person is not doing a very good job.
I would take that job in a heartbeat, except you'd get COVID.
Exactly. Yeah.
Lost and Found and Rewound is fully funded by Lost and Found and Rewound Foundation funds. Lost and Found and Rewound does not use crowdfunding because our listeners have better things to do with their funding. There's no need to post reviews of Lost and Found and Rewound because our listeners have more valuable things to do with their time. In all sincerity, thank you for listening to the show. We truly appreciate it.
This has been a presentation of the Lotus Pod Podcasting Network.